Well, the student loan bubble could be about to burst. A new study from Equifax shows that banks wrote off more than $3 billion in student loans debt. That was in January, February alone. That was up 36% from last year. Certainly a red flag. Joining us now to help discuss this, Charlie Kirk. Charlie, a lot of people point to different reasons this is happening. Obviously, it's so easy to get a loan that why not take it? Then there's hints that the loans are going to be forgiven. But you've got a unique angle. You're saying that a lot of kids are just picking the wrong majors.
Right. Well, too many people are going to college, first of all. I mean, I have a lot of friends that go to college. They might want to be a mechanic or a plumber, but instead they go study Eastern medieval history. And they're studying things that really don't have reciprocating value. I think we're looking at the student loan bubble right now, and it's very similar to what happened in the housing bubble. Right now, a new report was just released that 35%, up 35% from last year, banks are writing off student loans. It's very similar to what happened in 2008, and we're starting to see similar trends.
But do you blame the kid? I mean, if I'm 18 years old, this medieval thing seems exciting to me. Or do you say, does the school have any responsibility to say, hey, we want to let you know, if you want to study sociology, and I think these are your numbers, 23% of kids are studying that, but the unemployment rate for it is 50%. Is there some responsibility for the schools to say, maybe you should know that you may not get a gig doing this? It's a good hobby, but you can't get a job.
Right. I think there's two parts of it. There's a cultural perspective, and then there's, of course, the governmental, and both of them are contributing to the problem. The culture around it, when you're in high school, your counselors and your teachers are telling you have to go to college to be successful. You have to get a 4-year degree. And the colleges, they want more students to come to a university, but they're trying to make it seem that, you get a sociology degree, you're going to be able to compete in this job market, and unfortunately, that's not the reality. The reality is that if you get a degree studying, literature, something that might not be as competitive in this job market, you're not going to be able to find a job. And they need to know the truth going in, and there's nothing wrong with getting a 2-year degree or just going right into the workforce, getting the skills necessary to succeed.
Yeah, Charlie, I hear what you're saying. It's Liz McDonald here. Just circling back to Charles's point, and I understand, I get entirely what you're saying. Look at this stat. 7 out of the top 10 nonprofits in this country are universities. They're sitting on billions, if not over $1 trillion worth of assets. To Charles's point, should they be offering sort of like trade school degrees, in electrical engineering or things that people can find useful in the workplace? We see that happening, of course, in Finland and Sweden. We've talked about that on air already. Is it the college's fault? Should they be offering those programs?
I think there's fault on both sides, and I think it always comes down to the individual. But you look at the colleges, they're raking in record profits, and they're not necessarily profits, but they're raking in lots of money, new students, new enrollment. They don't necessarily have to change, but let's look at the individual for the student and also the parents and the teachers that are pushing their kids. You have to get a 4-year degree. And there was a new study released in Colorado that when people get a 2-year degree or a professional degree, they're earning more in 10 years than somebody that might get a 4-year liberal arts degree. So if you become electrical, like you said, electrical engineer or a plumber, that can still be a very admirable profession that does reciprocate in value over the next 10 or 20 years. Because no matter what happens, we're still going to need cars to be fixed. We still need plumbers and we still need electricians, and there's going to be a shortage in that market in 10, 20 years.
But Charlie, aren't you leaving out part of the picture here, and that is the federal government, and they have provided these loans to a point where they've run up the price of tuition so much so far that you guys can't afford it anymore, and you get out of college and you're on this mounting debt. Is there any blame amongst your peers placed on the federal government?
Unfortunately, my peers don't blame the federal government. There should be more blame because they're subsidizing the problem. They're encouraging more kids to get degrees that they really shouldn't. And you look at the new loan industry that President Obama wants to extend. He wants more loans and grants. And that sounds good. That sounds like a great idea to a young person especially. My peers say, oh, yeah, we should have more loans and grants. But what are they for? Is that investments in things that are going to reciprocate in value? Or are we just creating more kids that are going to go home and live with their parents? These are questions we need to ask ourselves. And unfortunately, at a young people,
right,
they think that it's good that we're going to be getting more grants and loans, but it might not. The good intention won't necessarily translate into good public policy.
And I think also, Charlie, there's been a hint, just a hint, that maybe a lot of these loans are going to be forgiven. I do want to bring up one thing because you brought up a lot of great points before we let you go. A degree in literature is very helpful if you happen to be on Jeopardy. So just keep that in mind because I always wish I had that when that category comes up. Charlie Kirk, thanks a lot. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right.